This look and shape is a shop floor staple. A practical yet stylish look that is designed for functionality and suitability. Before touching the hair, I assessed and analysed the fix factors as well as taking my client's preferences and lifestyle into consideration through the consultation. This will help me in reverse engineering the haircut in an efficient and effective manner. I started by sectioning out an unconventional square panel through the top, which purely followed the head shape and hair growth patterns. This separated the top from the sides and gives me some clarity at the beginning of the process. The first cut that I made was to set up my shape and first clipper guideline by using my scissor. I'm starting here due to the fact that it's arguably the most important part of the haircut, as it will set up the connection point between the top and sides. So remember to utilise the fix factors and head shape to help you visualise the end result prior to starting. The first point where I started was the point at the crown where the hair growth pattern changes direction. The reason I started here is due to the fact that this will be the most reactive part of the haircut due to the hair growth patterns. So in order for the look to be functional, I must not resist the natural hair fall. The choice of section was a forward diagonal section so that I removed weight and created my shape at the same time. With Fraser's hair type, a block section would have been potentially too heavy. I worked to the right hand side first, before coming back to my starting point and then working through the left. The reason I started on the right was due to the fact that I personally find this side more difficult. When switching sides, it's important to change your hand and body position to follow the direction that you want the hair to sit, and to make sure to use elevation plus your guide through the crown in order not to cut it too short. From here, I unclipped the top of the haircut and created a profile guide. The shape on top was a square shape vertically, and I cut it in by standing on the left hand side for full visibility. Because of this haircut's messy textured nature, I worked through each panel on the right and the left hand side of the profile guide, using horizontal sections working from back to front. Picking up each new section and over-directing it to the previous, using the profile guide as well as the length from the contours to point cut my shape in. This will leave me with more of a dishevelled textured look which needs minimal texture applied in the dry shape. I always check and point cut any excess length out of the corners to slightly round them off. I then repeat the same process on the left hand panel before cross-checking for any discrepancies. I used some matte paste as a pre-product whilst the hair was still damp to spread the product seamlessly and evenly throughout. On my Dyson Supersonic, I used a gentle air attachment and only my hands to style this look. I find that this gives the client a realistic process to follow once they go home. I started the process from the crown with a high velocity and medium heat setting, scrunching the hair to create texture and movement throughout. Once the hair feels fully dry, I then switch to the cool setting with a lower speed to set the product. When executed correctly, this can act like hairspray and will hold the hair in position whilst we move through the next steps. As you can now see, when the process of the wet shape is executed correctly, we can clearly visualize what we need to fade into. Due to the nature of Fraser's hair and head shape, which I discovered during the wet shape process, I'll be using a descending technique for the fade. Our fading techniques all follow a systematic process of starting on one side, repeating the same process on the other, and connecting through the back. So this is where that system really kicks into place. Once I've done this on both sides and connected it at the back, I then establish my lowest clipper number, which is the shortest number before skin. We like to call this our 00. Make sure to keep this guideline parallel to the shape that you created with your highest clipper number. Working out the spacing here is critical, and a general rule of thumb is 2 fingers depth from the highest point to the lowest. Repeat the process on the other side and connect through the back. Check for balance and symmetry. Once these guides are in place, I'll then work through one side of the fade completely before moving to the second side, descending from my highest to lowest clipper guard number. I started by using my foil shaver to bring the hair underneath my 00 line down to the skin, making sure to leave a few follicles of hair just below the guideline to help my fading process. Then I'll move in with a number 1 guard open to closed, then skipping to a 0.5 and slowly closing the lever as I work towards my 00 line. And lastly, I use my trimmer to knock out the faint balding line, if there is one. Following the process here is extremely important, as most of this technique depends on consistency with the motion of the clipper. It's essential to follow the process through and refine after, as sometimes you don't see the results until you reach that very last 0 line. What I'm looking for here is the colour spread to be even across the canvas. Sometimes that requires me to segment the head and work in specific micro segments before moving on to the next section. Repeat the exact same process on the other side by using landmarks on the head or face and your mirror for balance and symmetry. Once that's complete, connect everything together through the back. Once the process is followed through fully, you can start to refine using techniques such as scissor over comb and chipping to soften or pick out any discrepancies. Once the haircut is done, I focus on matching the beard. I almost always line up the beard first prior to fading it in. This is because I want to maintain the strongest outline and shape first rather than trying to create it later, which is often quite difficult. My process here starts by outlining behind the ears on both sides. I then join the middle of the neckline, creating a straight horizontal line about 1 finger's depth above the Adam's apple. This gives me a really easy job in joining the middle with the sides consistently. I do this by standing at a 45-degree angle to my client. The cheek line-up and shape changes slightly for each client also. I like to consider facial structure and shape in order to make the best possible decision that will complement their features. Once I've lined up the beard, I then reverse faded the beard working a guard skipping technique on both sides until I've reached the desired result and length for my client. I also freehanded the overall length, dusting off any loose ends. Once the beard is faded, I resharpen the line up on the cheeks and I sit my client upright. To complete the look, I use some more matte paste to create separation and movement. I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial. To watch more in-depth tutorials just like this, please take a browse through our resource library. Thank you and take care.